Joining me now, former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York and a Fox contributor, Andy McCarthy. Andy, I'm so grateful that we have you tonight to break this down for us. I was listening to your commentary today, your analysis on this. The key to me is what you have said about this affidavit and trying to redact parts of it, keep parts of it sealed, would give us a little bit of an insight into how close or how far the Justice Department is from potentially bringing charges against former President Trump. In your commentary today, you said your read on this is actually that they may not bring charges at all.
Yeah, well, Jackie, it doesn't make sense to me that they would fight so hard to conceal large portions of an affidavit that in a normal criminal case, what would happen is the affidavit would get turned over to the defense and discovery and it would become a public document. So since that's what would happen if there was a prosecution here, why are they fighting so hard? The other thing is this is very different from the usual criminal case. In a normal FBI investigation, you do the search warrants when you do the arrests at the end of the investigation. In fact, the arrest warrants and the search warrants are usually supported by the same affidavit statement of probable cause. So it's highly unusual to do a search in the middle of an investigation. It always would run the risk of blowing an investigation if you did things that way, which is another reason why they fought against disclosing it. And the last thing I would just throw out there is, even if you weren't dealing with the one official in the United States who had the authority to declassify whatever he wanted to declassify, classified information prosecutions are very difficult because it's hard to do them without revealing the underlying information. So a lot of these cases collapse of their own weight, not because the people don't deserve to be prosecuted, but because there's too much national security risk to actually doing the case in a public trial. Right.
And you bring up that point, which David just highlighted as well, that classification of SCI. It's a very high level of classification. Right. And that indicates that, what we know in the portions that were unsealed today was that this really was about the documents. There was no smoking gun from what we could see leading towards anything else. And this notion of obstruction, that there was some cooperation, there was back and forth, there were requests for the documents, and that the level of this was raised to a raid status to go into his home and take the documents because the Justice Department felt that he was not being forthright or not handing over what they asked for.
Yeah, I think what they would say, Jackie, is, and I for the life of me, I don't understand why Attorney General Garland made a public statement if he wasn't going to actually address what has people concerned, which is why a warrant and why now. I think what they would say is that they tried many different ways to get this information back. They tried reasoning with the Trump camp. They sent people down to talk to them. They escalated it up to the level of a criminal investigation. They issued grand jury subpoenas not once but twice. They sent the FBI to sort of comb Mar-a-Lago and interview people to make it clear to the Trump camp that they really needed this information back. And they finally probably got down to the point of saying, if we don't go in and take it, what assurance do we have that we'll ever get it back? And the problem with not getting it back is anytime you lose sensitive national security information, this highly classified information, the FBI and the intelligence community have to do a damage assessment to try to figure out how badly compromised are we? Are there informants whose lives might be in danger? Are there intelligence operations where we didn't realize they were blown and maybe like the Chinese or the Russians have been feeding us disinformation? You can imagine, there's a million possibilities that you have to run through, but you can't even really begin to do the job right unless you actually know what you're dealing with, what the documents are.
Okay, final point. The president himself on social media said he feels that this is a witch hunt. Having said that, when you look at the actual raid on his home, going through the personal items, going through closets, clothes, personal effects. They were allowed to do that per the warrant, yes. But some would say they were on some sort of a fishing expedition looking for something else that wasn't necessarily clearly laid out in this warrant. And if they found it, as you have said before, if they felt it was connected to the commission of a crime of some sort, they would be able to take that as well.
That's absolutely right. I think it's not one of these situations, Jackie, where there has to be one single explanation. I think it could be true that they really wanted the classified information back. the National Archives really wanted all the presidential records that by law are supposed to be kept at the National Archives, not at the former president's residence. And if they can hit a home run and find something that's relevant to January 6th, they're trying to make a January 6th case. I think all those things simultaneously can be true. They're not mutually exclusive.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Andy, always great to see you. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Jackie.